Welcome to all learners. As teachers, you know that in classroom, mostly we will get students from different backgrounds, behaviors, and their reactions and actions are different. How do we understand this behavioral change? Whether we will tell that this is because of the genetic differences? Is it correct to say that like that? Today we are going to discuss about different perspectives in child development. This topic comes under block 2 of the course BES-121 Childhood and Growing Up, which is part of B.Ed program. Let me see what are these perspectives means. Here you can see that we cannot rely upon one perspective. A variety of perspectives in child development can be utilized when studying as to how individuals think, feel, and behave. Different developmental perspectives have been developed to explain the various aspects of human development. So how we can classify this perspective? This perspectives, it can be classified into 5 major headings. It may not be in a watertight compartment, but it can be loosely classified as psychoanalytic perspective, learning perspective, ethological perspective, cognitive perspective, constructivist or socio-cultural perspective. In today's session, we are going to emphasize upon some of these perspectives. Let me see what is important in this psychoanalytic perspective. In psychoanalytic perspective, the emphasis is upon the emotions of children, whereas in learning perspective, it focuses on the different behavioral patterns of children. In ethological perspective, it focuses on evolutionary underpinning of behavior, and in cognitive perspective, it focuses on the thought processes, how children think and how do their thought processes goes on. And the next one, the contextual or the socio-cultural perspective, in that the emphasis is upon the socio-cultural background of children, or we can say the context where the child is growing up. In this session, the major focus is upon the biological perspective, the lifespan perspective, bioecological perspective, cognitive perspective, and socio-cultural perspective. When we think of this biological perspective, it comes under the ethological category. The lifespan perspective is a new dimension that the psychologists have included in understanding the development of children. And the bioecological perspective, the ecological context where it is, the child is growing upon. And in the cognitive perspective, there we can see the importance of the brain processes. And in the socio-cultural perspective, the context of the children comes into focal point. Let me discuss each perspective in detail. The first one, that is biological perspective. What does this perspective say? In biological perspective, we can see that the major emphasis is upon the genetics makeup of children. Here, in this perspective, they focus upon the genes or the biological basis where the children is growing upon. And in this biological perspective, we can see that there are two major viewpoints. The first one, maturation viewpoint, and the second one, attachment viewpoint. And these viewpoints, they were developed by different psychologists. Let me go to the maturation viewpoint. This maturation viewpoint, it was propounded by Arnold Jessel. And Arnold Jessel, he systematically described children's physical, social and emotional behavior through a quantitative study of human development. And he was the strong proponent of the maturational viewpoint of child development. He always emphasized this maturational viewpoint. What is this maturational viewpoint says that it focuses upon the period where the child is attaining the maturation. And he states that each child attains maturation differently at different points of time. The stages of development where the children is going through and finally how they reach the maturation level. That is the focal point of maturation viewpoint. And the next one, that is the attachment viewpoint, that is put forward by John Bowley, and later on this viewpoint was developed by Mary Ainsworth. What is this attachment viewpoint emphasizes? The theory of attachment focuses on the importance of the early parent-child relationship in developing desirable social, emotional and cognitive development in children. The quality of the relationship between parent and child is important in further growth and development of the child. And nowadays we know that because of the changing family structure, most probably parents may not be the caregivers or the caretakers of the children. They may be taken care by some other caregivers. So here the importance is to know how the caregivers, they satisfy the needs of children. That is very much important. And based on this, we can see that Mary Ainsworth, she always emphasized the different episodes that is needed in this attachment viewpoint. And Mary Ainsworth, she has stated about the 8 stages of the episodes that is important in the strange situation. She put forward that the strange situation, that is a procedure or a phenomena developed by Mary Ainsworth, and through this occasion, that is the strange episode, Mary Ainsworth come up with the 8 stages. Let me go through these 8 stages. What are the 8 stages? The first stage, that is the child is playing in the presence of the parent, and the next stage, when the experimenter, a strange person enters, there the child feels the stranger anxiety. And then when we look at this stage, how the child is feeling some kind of strangeness in the mind of the child. The strangeness, that is mostly it is happening because of the presence of the stranger. And in the next stage, the mother left the hall and the child feels some kind of separation anxiety. What is this separation anxiety denotes? that separation anxiety denotes that the child feels some kind of discomfort that the main person, that is the mother, where the focus of love and trust that the child is not getting. So that denotes that the separation anxiety. And when we look at the next stage, that is again the experimenter enters, then we can see the reaction of unification with the child. What does this unification denotes? Here the unification denotes that the child feels happy when seeing the presence of mother. So here we can see the stages that is coming onwards. And the next one, when we look at, we can see that again the mother left, again separation anxiety, the presence of the experimenter that creates the stranger anxiety, and from that the stranger anxiety, again when the mother comes, the child feels that the quotient, the comfort, the reaction of reunion that is happening in the minds of the child. So we have seen that the different stages, the 8 stages of the episode, how that reaction is going on. So this is very much important in the development of the child. When we look at these 8 stages, based on these 8 stages, we can classify the attachment. What is important? What is the different types of attachment, classification of attachment? When we look at the different classification of attachment, we can see that the first attachment classification, we can categorize it as secure attachment. When the child is secure, when the presence of the parents is there, the child is secure. So here in the secure attachment, it gives a positive development in the mind of children. And next type of the attachment classification, that is the insecure attachment. So here what type of insecure attachment is coming? We may say that because of the presence of a stranger. And the next one, we can see the ambivalence attachment. So when the mother left, some kind of discomfort is in the mind of the child. So that is coming in the mind of the child. And next one, we can see the avoidant attachment. There the child is not aware about what is happening. So there may not be the much understanding. So the child is not known about his own attachment. So among these various attachment, when we look at, we can see that among these 4 types of attachment, the most important type of attachment that a caregiver can give to the child is the secure attachment. And we have to think about the attachment that the school is providing. What type of attachment the child is getting. So here we can see that the 4 attachment, that is the secure attachment, the next one, that is the resistant attachment, that insecure attachment is happening there. And the next one, that is the avoidant attachment, and the next one, disoriented attachment. So in this way we can classify the various types of attachment. And when we come to the next perspective, that is the bioecological perspective. What is importance in this bioecological perspective? This bioecological perspective, it was put forward by Uri Bronfenbrenner, and he put forward the ecology of human development. And he stated that there will be the concentric circles model of human development, Child will be at the center and the context of development radiating out from the individual child's experience in proximal to distal order. Let me go to this ecological perspective. This is first it was stated as ecological perspective, later on it is stated as bioecological perspective. Brenner's bioecological model, it suggests that socialization occurs in context and the child is in the center of concentric circles which are modeled by various layers of context. So, here we can see the child is growing up in a nested set of influences where there are different layers. We will discuss what are the different layers. When we look at the bioecological perspective, we can see the nested set of influences. Which are the layers? The first layer is microsystem, the second layer is meso system, the third layer is exosystem, and the fourth layer is macro system. Let me think about the first layer, who all are coming in this first layer. And besides these 4 layers, we can see another dimension, that is Crona system. We are going to discuss each system in detail. Let me see the roles, the agents of this microsystem layer. The first one, that parents, then caregivers and child, and in the meso system, that is neighborhood, school, peers, religious institution, and in the case of this exosystem, there comes parents, workplace, mass media, government and social policy, and in the microsystem we can see the historical events, attitudes and ideas of the culture that influence a lot and the ethnic group. When we come to the microsystem, that is the basic layer which influence the development of a child. We can see that this microsystem consists of family, religious institution, health services, peers, school daycare and neighborhood area. So, here we can see that what is happening in the family, which is the basis of this microsystem. When we look at the family, we can see that a child is born in a family, that is the immediate environment. So, interaction within the microsystem, typically it involves personal relationship with family members, then the immediate surrounding areas, how it is going on. So, here when we think of this family as a microsystem, which is the immediate environment, from the family the child's attachment is going to the neighborhood. So, how the neighborhood areas influence the child, that is also important in the case of this the development of the child. So, we can see that there may be the family members, the neighborhoods and the peers and everything will be there in the microsystem. And when we think of this neighborhood, which is a major concept in the development of the child, we can see that the neighborhood influence a lot. The members, the neighborhood area, not only the children, the adults, how the culture is developing, how the relationship is going upon in neighborhood areas, that is very much important in the case of the development of the child. So, here the family that influences, the neighbor influences. So, here we can see all those things are going on in the case of the microsystem. And next, when we come to the religious institution, that is also a major part in the development of the child. And the school daycares and the play area where the child is developing, these all things influence the development of the child. And from this microsystem, we can see that the next one, that is the Meso System. When we come to the Meso System, we can say that it is a system of microsystem, and it connects two or more systems in which child, parent and family live, and the Meso System, it encompasses the interaction of the different microsystems which children find themselves in. So, we can say that it is in essence a system of microsystems, and as such it involves various linkages. What are the linkages taking place here in the Meso System? The linkage between home and school, the linkage between peer group and family, and the linkage between family and community. So, we have to look at here how the linkage is taking place at home, and from home it is extends to the school, and inside the school, within the school, how the linkage is taking place between the peer group and the family, and from the family it is extended towards the community. So, that is an important aspect in the Meso System. And in the Meso System, when we look, you can see in the screen how the Meso System looks like. It contains the relationship between the microsystems. What type of relationship? You can see the linkage between the family and the peer group, the family and the child first, and the child and the peer group, the child and the neighborhood areas, the child and the community. So, in this way the linkage is going on. And here we have to note that if a child's parents are actively involved in the friendship of their child, for example, they invite their child's friends over to their house from time to time and spend time with them, then the child's development is affected positively through harmony and like-mindedness. And the next case, when we think in the opposite way, that if the child's parents dislike their child's peers and openly criticize them, then the child experiences disequilibrium and conflicting emotions which will likely lead to negative development. So, here from this perspective, what is important is that how these layers, the different layers, the linkage between the different layers influence the child in developing positive experiences as well as negative experiences. Next we come to the exosystem. When we come to the exosystem, we can see the linkages that may exist between two or more settings. And here the places and people may include the parents' workplace, extended family members and the neighborhood the children live in. So, here what is the importance of the workplace of parents and the development of the child? We may be thinking in that line, how it will influence. For example, if a parent's workplace, the parent is working in some workplace, there occurs some stress. What happened? The parents take the stress at home and unknowingly express towards the children. So, it is indirectly affecting the development of the child. So, we can see that these all things has a link between the development of the child. And the next comes the macro system, which is the largest layer which influence the development of the child. And this is the most distant collection of people and places to the children that still have significant influences on them. This ecological system is composed of the children's cultural patterns and values, specifically their dominant beliefs and ideas, as well as political and economic systems. So, here for example, if we take the case of the children developing in war zones, how it affects the development of the child. Now we can take the issue of this coronavirus because of this pandemic issue, how it is affecting the development of a child. Take the case of migrant workers. They are leaving one state to another. What happens to their children? Because it will indirectly affect the development of the child. So here from this bioecological perspective, what understanding we are getting is that it is very much important to take care of the development of the child and how we will provide the positive or the negative experiences. Then comes the next dimension, that is the Crona system. It adds the useful dimension of time, which demonstrate the influence of both change and constancy in the children's development. The Crona system, it may include a change in family structure, parents' employment status, as well as immensely social changes such as economic cycles and wars. So the time also, the Crona system, the time it influenced the development of the child. By studying the various ecological systems, Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory is able to demonstrate the diversity of interrelated influences on children's development. And when we come to the next perspective, that is the lifespan perspective. Let me think of this lifespan perspective. Here, the earlier perspective, it is related with the development of the child, sometimes up to the adolescent period. But we can see that development did not stop up to the adolescence. It goes on during these adulthood stages. And in the old age also, some kind of changes we can see. Here, the development of an individual, we can see it takes place throughout the life. There comes the relevance of lifespan perspective. And in this perspective, they always emphasize upon the interaction of different. Here in the interaction, we have to think about one model, that is selective optimization with compensation model. In abbreviation, we will say that SOC, selective optimization with compensation model. What is this selection denotes? Here, first let me see what is this model. This model states the interaction that takes place between the three processes. Which are the three processes? That is the selection, optimization and compensation. What does this selection means? The selection means there it comes the importance of choosing goals, and this optimization and compensation, they enhances the chosen goals. And this selective optimization with compensation model, it was put forward by Paul Bates and his colleagues. They have put forward this selective optimization with the compensation model. Let me think of this selective optimization model with an example. We can see that suppose a child wants to perform. The ambition of a child is to become a doctor. What the child has to do? The child has to concentrate upon such areas, such specialization, science subjects. So, it is necessary to him or her to add the knowledge of their understanding about the different areas. So, here the child is concentrating upon the science subjects mostly, and reducing the reading or reducing the extracurricular activities. So, here the selection is making, the optimization and compensation is taking place through reading different scientific subjects. So, this is all about the selective optimization with compensation model. And when we go through this, we can see that different characteristics of lifespan perspective. The first characteristic is the lifelong process. It is the development is a lifelong process. It cannot be confined to adulthood, not only adulthood, because the changes is taking place in the old age also. And the next characteristics we can see that development is contextual, that the home is influencing, the school is influencing, the peer group is influencing, and moreover mass media is also influencing. And the next one we can see the next characteristics, that is multi-dimensional, that the development occurs physically, socially, mentally. So in different ways the development is occurring. And the next one we can see that it is multi-directional, in different ways that the development is occurring. And the next one, that is the lifelong plasticity. What does this plasticity means? It refers to the ability or the capacity to respond to the changes, that is whether the changes is positive or negative. There comes the importance of plasticity, how an individual is responding to these changes. And the next one, development, it is the result of multiple causation. And the next characteristics, that development includes multiple disciplines. When we look at the disciplines, we can see that the psychologists, the sociologists, anthropologists, the developmentalists, they define the developmental process of child differently. And lastly, the last characteristics of lifespan perspective, it involves both gain and losses. We can see this gain and losses is occurring. For example, if we state about a child, when the child acquired the language development, it lost the ability to make the babble sounds, which he or she makes during the infant stage. So this is happening in the lifespan perspective. Next, we are going to discuss about the cognitive perspective. Here, you know that the importance of Piaget, and here comes the relevance of cognitive developmental approach. What does this approach state about child development? This approach stated that the child is developing through 4 stages of development, which goes through 2 processes, that is assimilation and accommodation. Which are the 4 stages? We can see that the 4 stages, the first one, sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, and formal operational stage. Through these 4 stages and through the process of assimilation and accommodation, the child is developing and cognitively. Cognitive, we know that the emphasis is upon the thinking process, the memory process, how the brain functions, that is important. And next, in this perspective, the next important approach, that is the information processing approach. And in this information processing approach, we can see that how the child manipulate information, monitor it, and the strategies that used for getting this information. This comes important in this information processing approach. And the next approach, that is the developmental cognitive neuroscience approach. And from this we can understand the importance of the functioning of the brain, how the brain functions. And this brain functions, how it leads to mental processes. That is very much important in this developmental cognitive neuroscience approach. And here, this cognitive approach, it emphasizes the importance of the brain training that we give to a child. And the next perspective, that is the socio-cultural perspective. And this perspective, it was put forward by Lev Vygotsky, and here comes in this perspective the role of culture and social interaction, how the culture influences. And Lev Vygotsky, he stated that the child is not growing in a vacuum. There is something, the cultural influences in the child. So, it is the task of the teacher to make use of the previous understanding of the learner. And there comes this importance of psychological tools that mediate the child's thoughts, feelings and behaviors. These are the important perspective. So what is the relevance of this perspective for a teacher? When we look at this perspective, we can say that in the case of this bioecological perspective, the first viewpoint, that is the maturation viewpoint, it states that the school readiness of a child, whether the child is ready to go to a school. So here the maturation perspective emphasizes that the school readiness, it occurs within the child. That is the relevance of this maturation perspective. When we come to this attachment perspective, we can see that what type of relationship that is school providing, the student and the teacher, the student and the peer group. So here, what type of socio-emotional climate that is taking place in schools, that is the importance of the attachment perspective. And the next we have discussed about the bioecological perspective. There, how the different layers is important in bioecological perspective. So here comes the relevance of the framing of the social policies, how they indirectly affect the child. Take the case of the policy of giving the midday meals. It is directly affecting the child in a positive way. How the child is experiencing the positive feelings while getting good nutritious food. It may give a positive impact to come to school and learn a lot. And the next one regarding the lifespan perspective, that is the development of a child, it doesn't confine to adolescent stage. We should take care of throughout the life stages until the old age, how it is very much important. And when we look at the cognitive perspective, what is the educational implication is that the child should train properly how to think, how to process knowledge and memory, how to memorize. Here comes the importance of the metacognitive strategies, the information processing approach. Here comes the importance of this metacognitive strategy. And next, in the developmental neuro approach, there we can see that how we are training the child to acquire knowledge, to retrieve knowledge, to process knowledge. And next comes the importance of the socio-cultural perspective. What is the importance of this socio-cultural perspective? Here we can see that the psychological tool is very much important. And in the case of the child and related with the school, we can see that the most important tool is the language. How we are helping the child to develop language. So the language development, it first occurs at home. So this family background, how the parents are communicating to the child, that is an important aspect. So here we can see that in socio-cultural perspective, the school readiness, it doesn't lie within the child, it comes from the outside of the environment. The community is responsible. That is the importance of Lev Vygotsky. So this is all about the importance of the various perspectives. Hope that this session makes you as teachers to understand how different perspective is very much important in the development of the child, and you can conclude that not one perspective makes a holistic picture of child development. Each perspective has different aspects, and each aspect of different perspective leads to a fuller development of the child. Thank you.